Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising trilogy, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again. Each book is a compilation of features about cruisers and cruise and travel personalities from around the world. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul, and this week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, I am delighted to welcome my good friends Joan and Jim Sloan of CouplesTravel. I wrote about Joan and Jim in my first cruising book, The Joy of Cruising, in a section called Cuba Cruising, which featured three very different couples sharing their perspectives on a cruise to Cuba. The Sloan's feature was called Joan and Jim, Cuba and Jazz. Cheryl and I have traveled a little with Joan and Jim. We spent time with them a couple of times in New Orleans for the annual Essence Music Festival. However, their travel often takes them on international journeys, cruise as well as land trips to exotic destinations still on my bucket list, like Africa and Switzerland. In fact, they have just returned from Egypt, and I can't wait to hear all of the wonderful details. Welcome, Joan and Jim, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
How you doing, Paul?
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Good. I'm hanging in there. Pretty excited about upcoming cruises and travel and seeing people for the holidays. So, how you both doing?
Well, we're doing great. We've been recovering from our latest trip. So for about a week, I've spent mostly in my pajamas and icing my knees. I think Jim has fared a little bit better.
Yeah, fared a little bit better. The day after we came back on a Friday, on Saturday, neither one of us got out of our pajamas. But on Sunday, we actually went down to Maryland to event that Tasswana was hosting. But it's been one of those things where it's still a matter of trying to get your wind back after, being away for 14 days and going a lot of different places, seeing a lot of different things.
Well, I'm sorry. I was going to say I can't wait to hear about it, and I've kind of built some anticipation with the listeners because it looks like a wonderful trip. What were you getting ready to say, Jim?
Oh, I was saying the other thing, though, unfortunately, is I think I've come down with a little cold, so excuse me if I have to go off screen for a second to sneeze or blow my nose.
No, I hear you. Okay, so before we discuss your feature in The Joy of Cruising, tell our listeners about yourself. Where you're from, where you live, professional background, anything you would like to share.
Okay. I was born in North Carolina. In fact, in Charlotte, North Carolina, but I grew up in Philadelphia. Went to school in Philadelphia, then went off to Penn State. Came back to Philadelphia, worked in the Philadelphia school system for like 37 years as a teacher, as a principal, and retired from there. And then it came down to Wilmington, Delaware afterwards. I took up a job as the head of math and science for a district down here for a couple of years. At the same time, I also was an adjunct instructor at Drexel University in their College of Education. So, but I have retired from all that, and the thing we like to do is travel, among other things. But that's basically it for me.
From what I can see on social media, you all are leading a blissful retirement. How about you, Joan?
So I am from Philadelphia. I, too, went to Penn State. My entire career has been in healthcare, from clinical to corporate. I retired in 2009. It was probably the best thing that I ever did. Concurrent with being in corporate America, I started my own business, By Example Coaching and Consulting. So I did a lot of executive coaching and health coaching and business coaching. and, retired, and we've been married for 30 years.
So you have a lot of cruise and travel stories to share, but I have to first ask you about your most recent dream journey. Give us the glorious details about your recent trip to Egypt.
Well, I'll start because Egypt had been a dream of mine since I was 22 years old. So this was really a dream come true. And just to be there and see the antiquities and the pyramids and the cruise the Nile and see the temples, it was just absolutely amazing.
And I have to say
Now,
oh, go ahead, Paul.
I'm sorry, when you say cruise the Nile, is that a river cruise?
Yeah, that's a river cruise. We cruised from Aswan to Luxor for 3 days. And what's very different about that cruise is that every stop was an ancient temple or a tomb or a monument. And some stops you could even walk from the port to those antiquities. It was just amazing.
Mm-hmm. What was the cruise line?
It was called Fanaya, Fanaya.
Mm-hmm. What, how many did it hold?
There were 60 cabins, so it was small.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And our group was a group of 38, so we took up the majority of the cabins. But the cruise ship itself, it had wonderful dining room. It had a deck up top with a nice swimming pool. It had exercise room. It had stores. It had all the things that you would think of on a cruise, but just in a much smaller space.
What was that your first river cruise?
Yes. We had never been on a river cruise before.
Yeah, the reason I didn't mean to interrupt, but I got excited when you said you cruise the Nile because, a river cruise is on my mind right now because we are booked for our first river cruise. So maybe offline we can chat a little bit and you can give me a little bit of the, what the inside scoop about your river cruise. We're doing, ours is a week long. It's in France. So.
Nice.
Yep. So go ahead, Jim. You were starting to say something, but Joan caught my ear when she mentioned river cruise.
No, I was saying that it's been on Joan's bucket list for a long time, but Egypt has also been among the top 5 places that I wanted to visit for quite a little while. And the thing that we did first that really amazed me were of course, the pyramids, which everybody sees. We actually got into Cairo a day ahead of time, and our tour director had arranged for those who came early to actually go see a couple other pyramids that the rest of the folks weren't scheduled to see. So one of them was the Red Pyramid, and I believe the second one was the Bent Pyramid. But the thing I didn't realize was that I could go down into the pyramid. I mean, I actually went down into the pyramid. It was a little bit of a challenge for me and my arthritic knees, but it was quite an experience in terms of going down in there. You were bent over a good deal of the time, and going down into the pyramid was actually going down almost like a slide that they had put metal strips across. So you were sort of going down sideways, quite deep, for quite a little while, and there wasn't a whole lot of light. The other thing, of course, was in Egypt, the temperature was like 102 or 103 degrees outside. So it was a little toasty inside the pyramid also. And after going through several passageways, you got to this one part where it stopped. And I was expecting to see like hieroglyphics or sarcophagus or something of that sort. There was not a thing. I mean, there was nothing written on the walls. There was no sarcophagus. It was just like this room at the end. And I do have to say, though, that as we went further, as we did our Nile tour and all, that the temples and all, there were plenty of hieroglyphics and drawings and symbols all over the place. But I was very surprised that when I went down into this pyramid, that none of that was on the wall. And that was the same case when we got to the next day. We went to the Giza pyramid, the large one, where that plaza has actually 9 pyramids of various sizes. The biggest one, the Giza, is the one that most people see. And we were able to go down into that one also. In fact, I even encouraged Joan, who was not too keen on doing that, to go down in that also. You got anything to say about that, babe?
No, it was just an arduous trek. And you had to climb up all these limestone steps before you even got in there. And then you had to crawl through. And it was quite arduous, but I was very pleased to have done that. But what was nice is that we took a carriage ride around the pyramid so we could get a panoramic view and we could see 9 pyramids at once. I mean, the sight was just breathtaking. So we were up close and personal to all the pyramids.
Yeah. In fact, from our hotel room, you could actually see the pyramids to the right of the room that we were in, which sort of surprised me because I always thought the pyramids were like out further in the desert or someplace, but we could actually see them from our room. And then also we could see the Nile from our hotel was actually almost right next to the Nile. So I was a little surprised at that. And then, from that point, from Cairo, we took the airplane ride down to Aswan, and that's where we boarded the ship to come up the Nile. So, Joan, you want to take it over from here?
Well, so, not only at every port, we went to the Valley of the Kings. We saw the Temple of Horus and Queen Hatshepsut, but we actually took a city tour of the city of Luxor by carriage. And that was wonderful at night as well. And we also went to a Nubian village and we went there by boat. And, there was lots of fanfare and singing on the way. And we went to this very colorful village and they entertained us and gave us food and tea. So we just kind of had the full experience. And from the cruise, we then went to a beach resort called Hurghada. And it was on the Red Sea. And the Red Sea was quite a surprise for all of us because the Red Sea is one of the most buoyant seas because of its high salt content. So you can very easily float. So that was nice. And then that's where I think you've seen my flying dress photo shoot. So that's where I had that at Hurghada. So it was just a really special time.
Well, I've learned a lot already. Egypt is on my ever-growing bucket list, but I'd never heard of people entering the pyramids. So that's something. Now, let me go back. How did you guys? I assume you guys flew. There was no cruise involved besides the river cruise.
No, we flew on Egypt Air to Cairo. And we had very nice accommodations. So we flew with That Man Travels, Carrie Bradshaw, and he had a small group of us, 38 of us. And we stayed in the Four Seasons Hotel in Cairo, which was absolutely lovely. So we started out with luxury accommodations. And, we spent several days in Cairo. We got to see the new Egyptian Museum, which is going to be the largest museum in the world. It sits on 5.2 million acres. And they're going to be transferring a lot of the antiquities from older museums into there. Mm-hmm. So they had a huge statue of Ramses. But anyway, we kind of went to a soft opening of that. Mm-hmm. So that was nice.
How long was that wasn't a direct flight, right?
Yeah, we had a direct flight.
Really?
10 hours.
Yeah, from JFK.
Wow. How long was that flight?
10 hours.
10 hours, okay.
And we flew with some friends of ours. So we went to their place in Mount Airy, Philadelphia, and we'd rented a car, and the car took us to New York and then brought us back. Mm-hmm. So 10-hour flight. And when we got there, we actually upgraded because they were having a half price discount. So we upgraded to business class. So we were able to, have our seats turn into beds. And, we had all these wonderful meals. So it was easy travel.
Wow. Well, in the intro, I alluded to your exotic travel. Egypt was exotic enough, but I know there's a whole lot more because I've seen it. I've seen photos. So tell us about some of your most memorable travel exploits. You got to talk about Africa, but I know you've done all kind of things. So what stands out?
Well, since you mentioned Africa, what stands out most for me was our trip to Ghana in 2019. Mm-hmm. which was the year of return. And the year of return was declared by the president of Ghana, requesting that people of the African diaspora, African Americans, come home.
Mm-hmm.
And little did we know that we would be touring Ghana at the same time that 50 African American actors would be, led by Boris Cujo, who is half Ghanaian. So while we toured, they were at the same tour places. We got a chance to party with them.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, the trip was memorable in so many different ways. It had its highs and its lows. So of course we went to Cape Castle, which is where they held the Africans who would become slaves in America. And we stood in a small, dank, stalls, and we stood at the door of no return where people left from.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, we had the heartwarming experience of being welcomed home by the chiefs in the village and actually getting our African names.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we went to a bush village by the name of Kisaman. And, that's the place where we actually got our African names. Joan has to keep reminding me of what mine is.
It's Kabla Selassie. So before we came, we all had to know what day we were born. So for women who were born on Tuesdays, that name is Abla. And for men, it's Kabla. And then from a basket, we chose names. And mine is Abla Diasanyo, which means all is good. And Jim's is...
I remember.
Kabla Selassie, which means God hears me. But it was a very... Go ahead.
Jim, you're going to have to get you one of those custom T-shirts.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Welcome to From the Library with Love, possibly the only podcast inspired by an underground wartime library. I'm Kate Thompson, historical fiction author. Come and join me every Saturday as I unearth the stories of ordinary people with extraordinary stories to share. Spend an hour in the company of 100-year-old Bletchley Park codebreaker Betty as she reveals her wartime secrets. Be moved by the courage of Auschwitz survivor Rini. Or why not join myself and New York Times bestselling author Madeline Martin as we talk clandestine book clubs and bodice rippers in the blackout. From the Library with Love, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Excellent idea, Paul. Excellent idea. I am going to have to give me one of those.
Because I'll tell you no lie. Well, like I said, I'm Africa is probably highest on my bucket list, and if I go to where you all went and I get one of those shirts, not one of those shirts, get a name, I'm going to put it on a shirt, and so everybody will have to ask me, what does that mean? And then I can say, what does it mean, Jay? What does it mean?
It means God hears me.
There you go. I would love to. People just be walking up to me, and I say, "Yeah, God hears me."
Oh, that's powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It is.
Well, this is an aside, but when we were in Egypt, we both got cartouches with our names in hieroglyphics.
Now, educate me. What's a cartouche? You said cartouche?
Cartouche, right? And it's where you can put your name in hieroglyphics. So we bought a gold necklace that has our name in hieroglyphics, letters for each, the gold piece that has our name. And on the back, we chose different hieroglyphic symbols to go there too. But that's called cartouche. So we both came home with that. In fact, I'll be going to an event tomorrow and I'm going to sport that because it's really a conversation piece.
Wow.
So anyway, we have hieroglyphics too.
Getting back to Ghana, we did an Accra city tour where we also got to go to a square where it's highlighted Kwame Nkrumah Memorial and that sort of thing. In fact, I think we all took a picture. The whole group took a picture.
It was 100 of us.
Took a picture in front of that with our fists raised and that sort of thing. We got to go to something called Kakum National Park, which was very interesting in that they hit you walk around, and I think it included different little bridges that you walked over as you went around to different parts. We got to do a tour of a place called Kumasi, where we were able to see how they weaved a lot of the fabrics and
the kente
cloth fabrics and stuff that they that they make there. So all of that was very interesting.
And one of the interesting things was we had all been asked to bring school supplies to give donations to children. So we went to a village and we had a suitcase full, and the kids came from miles around and lined up. And that was very heartwarming to see. Yeah. So and then on New Year's Eve day, we partied on Pleasant Beach on the Atlantic Ocean. And in fact, they gave, this is just arbitrary, but they gave us a bottle of Johnny Walker Black, a Coke, and what was Bailey's Irish Cream. So that was a strange combination.
Yeah, we couldn't figure out why they chose those three things to give us, because they aren't typically things that I think of mixing together.
But we had a party. They had a DJ on the beach, and then that night we all partied at the Sky Club, which is has a very modern view of the sky, and that's where all the Hollywood people were partying at the pool there.
So you were there over the holiday. Were you there over Christmas too?
Right after Christmas.
Right after Christmas weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, but we were there for the New Year. We were there for the New Year, which was awesome. And one of the things that I've said that I'd like to do is bring the New Year in at a different country every year. So COVID kind of put a damper on that, but we did bring the New Year in St. Martin because one of our daughter's friends had celebrated her birthday there.
Well, I know y'all know how to bring the New Year in, because even a little old house bringing the New Year in, I participated in with you also. I can imagine what you would do in a foreign land. So let me ask, was the travel advice the same as for the Egypt trip?
Well, for the Ghana trip, it was African American travelers. That was the group we traveled with. For the Egypt trip, it was That Man's Travels, who used to be with African American Travels, but now has his own travel group.
Okay.
So, but he had been our host for that and for Kenya as well. So last year we went to Kenya, which was awesome, all kind of good things. Now, this doesn't include Jim, but I started 30 some years ago in Senegal and Gambia with my daughter when she was 9. But since that time, we've been to Morocco as part of a trip to Spain. We've been to Ghana, to Kenya, and now Egypt.
Yep.
Now Kenya. So you told me the travel advisor for Egypt. You told me travel advisor for Ghana. Who was it for Kenya?
Well, Kenya was African American Travels, but That Man Travels was our host for the Kenya trip. So we've been hosted by the same person each time, and it's been awesome, and the itinerary has been great. Okay.
I know this is selfish, and this should be about you, but please send me that information via email, because I like I said, I told you, Africa is way up on the bucket list, but I don't know when it's going to be, but I want to do it right, and you all have done it, so.
Okay.
Getting back to other places that, for me, one of the places that we went that I, just found just totally different because I had never had an experience like that, was we went to Switzerland. And we went to a little town called Lausanne. And all I can remember is that it was like a scene from Out of the Sound of Music. I expected to hear singing break out because the mountain was there, the clouds were hanging down over the mountain, and they had the cows out in the pasture with the bells sort of, ringing on the cows. And that wasn't the only place we went, but, Switzerland was not a place that I really thought about necessarily visiting, but the experience was a very beautiful and educational one for me.
I remember, I again mentioned in the intro, we went out to dinner with you all a couple of times in New Orleans for the Essence Music Fest, and I remember distinctly when I decided I want to get into international travel, and we were at dinner and you were talking about the Switzerland trip.
Okay.
And I remember on the way back to the room saying, "Sure, I want to be like Joan and Jim." So we getting there, we
Yeah, you're doing a lot of cruising. I see that, and a lot of travel.
Yeah, we did the Med last year. We're doing the Med, a different part of the Med in early 24, and doing the Med in Greek islands in 24. So we got a long ways to catch up to you, but like I said, I wonder. To me, this is the ultimate sign, and this is me looking at things maybe glass half full. This is the ultimate sign of getting old, because just about every trip that I have booked is a bucket list trip. So something is making me check off these bucket list destinations.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good excuse to book bucket list destinations. I say to Cheryl sometime, she says, "Do we have to cruise all the time?" And I say, "Well, we only have so much time to check off the bucket list." So let's switch to cruising. Let's go way back. What was your first cruise?
We had to think about that, but it was the Big Red Boat, a Disney cruise back in the 1990s, and it was part of a promotional. And we don't remember much about it, except for it was probably a 3 or 4 day cruise, and it was to the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess the next cruise after that was in 2009 on an Explorer, and we went to Bermuda. It actually left out of New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And the only place it went was Bermuda. So we had overnight stays in Bermuda. So those were our first 2 cruise experiences.
Now, after that first cruise, were you hooked, or was it something you thought had to grow on you?
Well, for me, because I hadn't done very many cruises, I liked the idea. And I knew that I wanted to do additional cruises. I don't know that I was over the top gung-ho, but I knew I wanted to do other cruises because I figured there were other experiences a little bit different. And the Big Red Boat, to me, although a nice experience, when you see all the advertisements for other boats that are bigger and a little more lavish, that sort of thing, you sort of wonder what they're like and sort of want to try those out too.
So you weren't hooked, but it piqued your curiosity.
Yes, for me, yes.
Well, for me at the time, there was the old adage that cruises were for the newlywed or the nearly dead. Had you heard?
I hadn't heard that.
Well, back in the day, that was the view of cruises.
Mm-hmm.
So cruises weren't big on my list back then, but they grew as we started to do other cruises and music cruises, etc.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about, you mentioned music cruise, and let's talk about the special cruise to Cuba that you were on, that I detailed in The Joy of Cruising.
Well, for me, that was right up there, either 1 or 2 in terms of the cruises that I've taken. It had to do with the fact that, number one, it was a soul cruise, and that music was a big part of that cruise, so that while you were on the water, you were entertained by a bevy of different artists and that sort of things, and jazz and I guess rock and roll and that sort of stuff, or I should say rhythm and blues rather than rock and roll. And also that you got the opportunity to actually go someplace that to me was very unique, especially with the fact that, travel to Cuba was restricted for the longest time, and have the opportunity to go there and see a culture and a country that you read about, but you didn't necessarily think that you would be able to go and see. Mm-hmm. And it's true that the trip was based on the fact it was labeled a cultural tour. And when we were filling out paperwork, we had to fill out basically the fact that we were going to do cultural things while in Cuba in order to be able to go there. Mm-hmm. But, and the fact that we were able to stop at 3 different places, Havana, Cienfuegos, and Santiago de Cuba, was another additional thing for me. So it wasn't like I was just getting to see Havana. I was actually getting to see other places, in Cuba, and being able to taste their food, see how folks were living, to get some sense of the atmosphere and the environment in which folks were living, was really a great experience for me. I mean, I totally enjoyed it.
Yeah, I recall from the pictures in the book, it certainly appeared that you had the opportunity to immerse yourselves into the culture.
Right.
So, how
Yeah.
about you, John?
Well, we took a dance tour, which I thoroughly loved. And it began with salsa. It was a full day dance tour. So it began with salsa lessons, which was energetic. And I think we did okay. And then we visited a ballet troupe and a ballet school where they both introduced us to both African ballet and European ballet.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was really mesmerized when we went to I think it was called the Habana Campus Dance Troupe Compass. And it was more like, it was like stump, Cuban style. So they used chairs and all kinds of inanimate objects as percussion instruments to accompany their dance. So that was wonderful.
Yeah, they use boxes, drums, their heels, keys, flip flops, and traditional instruments to produce the sounds and stuff. I mean, it was quite a gas. I mean, there was a blend of ballet, folklore, contemporary, and flamenco in the things that they were presenting to us. And at the end of it, we noticed that there were children's classes coming into them. So they were passing this on to the younger generation in terms of teaching them.
And while we were there, we also got to see Castro's grave. And we also got to see all the revolutionary sites. And in fact, Jim has a picture of himself in front of the building where it's bullet riddled. I think
bullet hole. Yeah, that was in the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think
Yep, that was in the book.
Yeah.
There wasn't mentioned that, that I found out that there were only like 3 original bullet holes that they had created extra ones.
Okay.
Yeah,
you just gave them away.
Yeah. I mean, but in the inside, they had a complete history, basically, of the revolution and things that from the beginning all the way through to, I guess, Castro taking over. So it was very interesting in terms of a historical aspect, also.
And on the ship, go ahead.
Sounds like you're getting right to it, because I was just going to say something about the ship. Wasn't it like the first ship to be allowed to? Yes. Go ahead. I'll let you say it.
Well, no, it was the first the first music cruise to go to.
Okay.
One of the first ships to go to Cuba, period.
Uh-huh.
Small ship.
What was the ship name? Do you remember?
Fathom Adonia.
Okay.
Fathom Adonia. And then it changed its name later, but I think it was the Fathom Adonia.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was a small ship, but part of the thing, they also had movies and lectures and stuff that were cultural, that prepared you for Cuba. The food helped you get immersed in the Cuban culture. The ship itself was nice. I mean, the ship itself was really nice. And, because it was a music cruise, they had all the different music venues as well. And as we normally do, we always meet friends when we travel. So we've made some good friends from that trip, and they're still our friends now.
Oh, music and cruising. I mean, that's my ultimate 2 passions. Who were some of the artists on the ship?
Hey,
a whole host of them.
I know one was Eric Robeson, because I have a photo of you guys with him.
Yeah, Eric Robeson was the host, but people like Kenny Lattimore, Frank McComb, Mint Condition, Kim, Rashawn Patterson. It was a whole host. It was a whole host of performers. And that's the way it's been on all of our music cruises, just a whole host of performers.
Now, you say all of your music cruises. What other ones have you gone on? So
we've been on three music cruises. Yeah. My most favorite music cruise experience was the Super Jazz cruise. For Jim's 70th birthday. And that was just awesome. That was in 2015. Can you imagine, we've done an Essence Music Festival together. Can you imagine Essence Music Festival on a ship for 7 days, with 40 performers, like in the big stage, like in the Superdome, you'd have 2 seatings, and then all these small lounges with all the other performers. And it's nonstop music, nonstop partying. And you get to spend late nights with the performers. Like Frank McComb would play the piano, and then other people would just walk up and start playing with him.
Yeah, jam sessions.
Yeah, jam sessions. Or we'd be in a pizza line and we're talking to the performers. And when we got on the cruise, they said, pace yourself. but there was absolutely no way you could pace yourself because you were 24/7. And no, I was going to say, and it was kind of happenstance. This was Jim's 70th birthday, and I was just Googling online trying to find something for the 70th birthday. Didn't know about this cruise. The cruise came up, and they were basically sold out. And so I contacted them directly. They had a suite left. So, I paid the bucks to have the suite and then talked to my contact and figured out that they had a few, more inside cabins. So we ended up taking our kids with us and friends with us. So it was awesome.
Wow. It sounds a lot. I went on the Smooth Jazz cruise in January.
Okay. How was
It
that?
sounds exactly like that. Oh, that was just unbelievable. Anybody who is anybody in Smooth Jazz was there. I've had one performer, Vincent Galla. He's a sax player. He's been on the podcast, and I'm talking to two others, and they are very, very big names, but I don't want to mention them until I have them committed.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it was great. Marcus Miller,
Robert Glasper, David Sanborn.
Yeah. No, David Sanborn, he wasn't on this one. They have the cruise I went on. They have a couple. So they have one called a Smooth Jazz cruise, and then they have another one that's a kind of a big band. They have about 3 or 4 jazz flavored cruises, and so I went on Smooth Jazz. But yeah, consider that it's every January. And the lineup is just unbelievable. But it sounds so similar to the one that you wanted. In fact, after about 2 days, I remember remarking to Cheryl, I feel normally on the 7th day of a regular cruise.
Yeah, that's true.
It was just so much coming at you. Have you guys cruised since the COVID lockdown?
No, in fact, when it locked down, I vowed I was never going to cruise again. But
wow.
But in preparation for this podcast and reliving the cruises, I will be cruising again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll be looking for another music cruise more than likely. Although having the river cruise along the Nile, I don't know if that qualifies or not as cruising again. But it sort of made me rethink river cruises, just like I know you said you're planning on doing some of those. And I've told Joan that that's something that I might like to do too. I regularly get a brochure from Viking that shows a number of the ones that they do, in Europe and other places.
Yeah, Viking is no destination in mind, but just sailing Viking is on my bucket list. Our river cruises with Emma Christina.
Okay.
In fact, I sent you. Maybe you didn't get it. I'll send you a brochure because it is an unbelievable trip.
Okay.
And it checks off a couple of bucket list items for me. As I said, I've never done a river cruise, and that was high on the list. So it'll check that off. And I'm kind of sheepish to admit I've never been to Paris. I've been to France, but never been to Paris. So this river cruise that we're going on, the river cruise is 7 days, and then there's 3 days on land in Paris.
Okay.
And it includes sort of like a Black History tour of Paris because Paris has a rich history of scholars, performers, jazz artists, even athletes who because circumstances in the U.S. They moved to Paris. Of course, we've all heard of Josephine Baker.
Yeah.
So yeah, the whole theme of the river cruise is called A Soulful Epicurean.
Oh. That sounds like some soul food too.
And in fact, if you get a chance, I know I'm probably selling myself here, but if you get a chance, go back and listen to the podcast on Festival at Sea.
Okay.
Festival at Sea. Okay.
Yeah, they do an annual cruise called Festival at Sea. Sold out. It sells out within minutes every year. But they also, what's lesser known is they also do something called Friends of Festival at Sea,
Okay.
which are very, very high-end cruises. They use Viking a lot, for instance, to very exotic locations.
Okay.
So Festival at Sea is pricey enough because it's like a music cruise.
Right.
Although it's a cultural cruise, they do have performers. So it's much higher than a typical cruise.
Mhm.
Well, Friends of Festival at Sea is multiples higher of Festival at Sea. So, but anyway, this is your time. I'll send you something offline and we'll talk about that.
Okay. Just as an aside, we did a Black History tour in Paris as well.
Oh, well then
It was great.
this might be similar.
And we went
Same.
and we went to the oldest jazz club in Paris.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
one other little tidbit is that a friend of ours had a friend who was playing in Paris. So what was his name? Chris Henderson?
Mhm.
Yeah. So we were able to hook up with him and actually go to a club in Paris and see him play.
Oh man.
That was
Oh wow.
nice.
Yep. So when I interviewed you for the Joy of Cruising, you had recently launched an endeavor, CouplesTravel. I know CouplesTravel has a presence on Instagram. Say a little bit about CouplesTravel.
It was my idea to launch CouplesTravel because we travel so much and we love to share. And so what you'll find on Instagram, and for a while I was doing travel by the alphabet, every place we travel by A, B, C, and D. And so it's become a mixed bag now. I do most of my posts on my personal Facebook page, although I continue to post on Instagram. So it's not as rich as it could be, but it's still filled with travel through. We've been to 36 countries.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's reflected on our Instagram account.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Jim and I both became certified travel writers, and Jim took travel photography. So we haven't done anything formal with it. I mean, I've entered a couple writing contests, but so we're still chilling in retirement. We're not quite as ambitious as you are.
Well, I was about to say, I can see a CouplesTravel podcast in your future. Seems like that would be a perfect medium for you all. But again, we'll talk about that offline. So let's talk about the future. What do you have booked?
So right now we have our annual trip to Mexico, Puerto Vallarta, and just a trip to Fort Lauderdale with friends.
So when is Puerto Vallarta?
That's end of April, beginning of May.
Okay.
And then probably January or February, we're going to spend 2 weeks in Fort Lauderdale with our friends. But, most of our travel has been unplanned. And so while we don't have anything booked, I'm sure things will come up. For example, last year, we went to Copenhagen and Sweden. That wasn't on our list. But a friend of ours was a producer of a documentary film, and she invited us to Copenhagen to the film festival, and we went.
Wow. It must be nice to be a world traveler who gets invited by jazz musicians and film directors and on and on and on. I told you I want to be like y'all.
So, we expect unplanned travel because it always comes up. Right now, some friends are trying to hook us up with a, what do you call it? The yachts. A group of yachts cruising down.
Yeah, 2 or 3 yachts with 3 or 4 couples on each and cruising, I forget, through some islands, I think in the Bahamas or that sort of thing.
So, most of our travel has been unplanned, like Switzerland. I won airline tickets to Switzerland. That's how we ended up going there.
Oh, okay. So
go ahead.
You seemingly have done it all. What's on your bucket list?
Well, the bucket list includes South Africa. In fact, that's how we sort of ended up going to Kenya, right? The fact that there was a trip that we had thought we were signing up for, but then there weren't enough people originally, so they were sort of not sure about whether the trip would actually happen.
During COVID.
During COVID, so they said choose another trip, and that's when we chose the Kenya trip. And stuff.
Okay.
But South Africa's still there. We still want to get to South Africa. I want to get to Thailand because I've never been to the Far East. And from friends that have gone there, it seems like it's a wonderful experience. And, I want to do that. And then the other place is Brazil. Specifically, I'd like to get to Bahia because of its Black cultural background. Bahia, I think, is only a little bit away from Rio de Janeiro, which I do want to check out too.
Well, that Friends of Festival at Sea I mentioned, I told you I'll send you the information about their river cruise. That's in 24, but then in early 25, their trip is an unbelievable Asian itinerary.
Oh,
it ends in Singapore.
Okay. And that's been on our list.
Yeah, but this one. We're not ready for this one yet. After we do 24, we'll have to wait a while before we can do something like their Asian trip. But I'll send you both.
Okay.
Anything else on the bucket list?
No, we'll just take them as they come because there's always opportunities and we seize opportunities.
All right. Well, before we let you go, and it has been so much fun getting back together with you. So I thought I'd ask you a couple of light or fun cruise questions, and then perhaps an oddball question that doesn't really relate necessarily to cruising. So the first cruise question, and this is just a softball so I can get some ideas. For each of you, what's your favorite cruise or travel drink and cruise or travel food?
Well, I think we both had the same food in terms of shrimp and grits.
There you go.
We've had that in several different places. In fact, I know we went someplace and Joan, I think, tried shrimp and grits at each one of the restaurants we went so she could.
That sounds like it was in New Orleans, because I know in New Orleans, I tried shrimp and grits even at the airport. So
the other thing though is I don't know if I can think of a particular favorite one, but I just like the fact that when you travel, you get to experience different foods. For instance, in Egypt, I never thought that I would do it, but I was eating pigeon.
Well, I was just going to ask you when you said that, because I've had other people tell me that when they're in these exotic places, they try the local custom. So I was just getting ready to ask you, what did you try? I might have tried pigeon. Someone answered when I asked that question. Someone answered scorpions or the stick. I said no, thank you. But that's not the worst. Someone else answered monkey brains.
No, thank you.
Now that I might try.
No, thank you.
Isn't that the same as sweetbreads?
Now, see, Jim is thinking about it.
And I'm going to tell you, pigeon, it was like, well, wait a second. Is this all I'm getting? Because it was real small. And like everything else, it tastes like chicken.
Yeah. Well, that's what they say. I tried frog legs somewhere.
Oh, I love frog legs.
But and it did taste like chicken, but why don't I just order chicken, which is much bigger and much meatier? So it kind of fell flat for me. But now, did you know it was pigeon before you ate?
Yes, it was on the menu.
Yes, two.
So, but it wasn't your main dish, right? Or was it?
No, I ordered it I could have ordered it as a main dish, but they also had it sort of like as an appetizer or something. And because I'd never tasted before or knew what I was getting, I decided, let's not go whole hog. Let's just taste it to say, I've had it and see whether I like it. But that wasn't the main dish for me. I can't remember what it was I had as a main dish, but it was good.
And that was in Egypt.
Yeah, that was in Egypt.
Jones, did you try anything exotic in Egypt?
I don't know if I tried anything exotic, but we went to this country restaurant, and of the things they served falafel, but it was the best falafel I've ever tasted. And one of our friends was taking some home with her back to the hotel. And she said, she says, because I don't even like falafel, but this is delicious. So it was a different preparation, and we really, really enjoyed it. The food on this trip was outstanding everywhere we went. So first of all,
I met Ghana and Kenya.
Okay, Ghana and Kenya. You typically had the same thing: rice, fish, and salad.
Yes.
And it was all good, but it was the same thing: rice and salad.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember Kenya. I think Kenya might have been pretty much the same thing.
The same sort of thing,
Now, we ended our trip in Mombasa, Kenya, which is on the beach, and it's a resort and was all inclusive. And then that was a whole more continental international menu.
Yeah, they had a whole buffet of different sorts of foods. They even had food, I think that was kosher or something, or they had something that was different on the to try to make sure they appeased everybody that might be visiting the resort. That was sort of a different experience. When it comes to drink, I like to try. I usually leave it to the bartender to give me something unique. I like bourbon, so if there's something that is made with a bourbon, then I'm willing to try that. But I can't think of any particular drink that I've had that was exceptional.
Do you remember,
Jim? You turned me on to something in New Orleans. It was because of the bar we went to.
Sazerac?
I think they were known.
What was it? Sazerac?
That's what it was. Yeah.
Sazerac. Yeah. That was supposedly made with absinthe, which is the stuff that drove what's his face to cut off his ear, supposedly. And for a while, absinthe was illegal in the United States. You couldn't use it, but now they use, I think, a derivative or something different when they make it. And we went in New Orleans. We went to the hotel where it was first made and distributed.
Okay, I remember there was something special about where we went.
Sazerac.
How about? Would you say that, Jim?
Sazerac? I still drink. In fact, I make them here at home.
Okay. How about you, Joan? Any special travel drink you like?
No, I do like to sample as Jim, and I can't remember I misread your question, but we both had special drinks. So we went to Dubai after we went to Egypt, and we actually went to Quincy Jones' club, Q's Lounge, which
in Dubai.
In Dubai. And the music director and drummer was from Philly. So it was an awesome experience. And it was our friend's 48th anniversary. So the whole thing was just off the chain. But they did make some specialty drinks. And both Jim and I got a specialty drink that was delicious. But I can't remember what it was called. But I know it was bourbon based.
The second fun cruise question. What's your most wonderful or memorable, funniest, or even most embarrassing cruise or port experience?
Well, for me, what was the funniest, and I guess it's funniest, we were at a Sinbad concert, and all of a sudden, on a cruise ship, and all of a sudden, it was like an earthquake. The cruise ship started to shake. And then it did that 2 or 3 more times. And then the lights started to flicker. And Sinbad's on stage with another comedian. He says, "Now, y'all can't tell me that you didn't feel that." And then he and the other comedian started to pray. And, the lights are flickering. There's no announcements. The boat is shaking. And then they had just told a joke about a woman with no toes. And they started saying, "Lord, forgive me. I'm okay with no toes." Then Sinbad says, when it comes to it, we're not going to save you. We're getting out of here. And, shook some more. And then it settled down and we kept cruising. And what we learned later was that the cruise had to make an unexpected stop in Puerto Rico. We were at sea for 2 days and it had to make an unexpected stop in Puerto Rico because somebody had gotten sick. So that was the shaking, and I guess when it stopped, etc. So that was kind of funny. And I kept thinking, boy, the story could have been I died laughing, and it would have really been.
Which cruise was that?
That
Do you remember?
was our last cruise. That was the Super Jazz cruise in 2020.
Okay.
And the Jazz cruise in 2015, which was to celebrate my 70th birthday, I guess I have to say that was one that was truly memorable because I can remember dancing to Dougie Fresh because in addition to the jazz people, they had some hip hop people on this cruise. So I can remember us in the middle of the afternoon, what was called a hip hop day party, dancing with my daughter, my goddaughter Joan, and other friends, and to the hip hop music, and we're just jamming. I mean, I'm having great fun. And I mean, that crew was just, a memorable birthday. But I remember that particular afternoon, we were just having a ball.
Sounds like a wonderful 70. The last question, this is the oddball question. So you have a lot of friends and followers to CouplesTravel and so on, and family. So welcome to the many Joan and Jim CouplesTravel friends and family and fans listening. We certainly hope you have liked what you've heard and will come back to check out future and past episodes. So each of you share one thing that my listeners and your friends and family don't know about Joan and Jim.
Well, I don't think too many people know that when I was in college, I rappelled down a very sheer and tall cliff that was part of the Nittany Mountains up in Pennsylvania. I actually did rappelling, where you jump off and you come down and you let out and that sort of thing. And I don't think I've told too many people about that or that know about that.
Now, was that a fraternity hazing episode?
No, it wasn't. The time that I entered Penn State, you had to join ROTC. That was
okay
for 1 year. But here's the thing, though. In addition to that, they had other things that you could do. So we were called Rangers, although we were not formally Rangers, but we wore little berets and that sort of stuff. And as part of that training, they taught us how to rappel down a mountain and stuff, that sort of thing. So that's how I ended up doing that.
Okay. Because like you, I'm from the city. I'm from New York, and I'm thinking, now, what circumstances would make me rappel down a mountain? And so the only thing I could think of was some fraternity activities, but I'm glad that wasn't the case. So you were you were doing the right thing.
Yes, I was doing the right thing.
How about you, Joan? What don't we know about Joan?
Well, you probably don't know that I have walked on hot coals.
Okay, you got to say more.
Well, as part of Tony Robbins, if you're familiar with Tony Robbins.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I went to one of his several-day events, and part of it was that you walked on hot coals. This was, unleash the power within to show that you could do almost anything. Mm-hmm. So we all walked down to a basement type area, and they had lanes of fire. And you walked across the coals, and he had prepared you in advance to get mentally ready. And I remember I had to say, cool moss, cool moss, cool moss, to tell myself that I was walking on cool moss. And you just had to make sure that you walked quickly in a straight line, and you didn't waver because you could burn yourself. Mm-hmm. So I walked across the coals, and I have a T-shirt that says Firewalker.
Wow. I've asked this question, what don't your friends and family know about you? Many times, almost every podcast episode. That one, I don't think anyone's going to match. I haven't heard I walked on hot coals. So how was it? Did you? I can't imagine me doing it. I can see me looking like something like in a Three Stooges movie or something like that. But sounds like you did it.
Yeah, so I was paired up with this young Asian guy. We were arm in arm. We were walking down the steps, and when we got down to the bottom of the steps, we saw all these lanes of fire, but I witnessed other people going across. And I said, well, if they can do it, I can do it. So I didn't get burned, and I just felt a great sense of accomplishment that I had done that I'd overcome my fear, and I'd done that. I didn't unleash the power within.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Joan and Jim, thank you so much for coming on the Joy of Cruising podcast, and thank you for being part of my first cruising book, The Joy of Cruising. I tell everyone who's been in the books, we're forever connected. Many, many years from now, when we're not around, one of our great grandkids will pick up a book that you're in and I wrote. So whether you like it or not, we are forever connected.
Well, and maybe we can cruise together.
That's that. There you go.
And we like the fact that we are connected with you and Cheryl.
Well, thank you.
We are.
So yeah, and as far as cruising together, like I said, I'll send you some information, and even if that information doesn't do it, we're going to plan something because I enjoyed so much the little traveling we've done together. And you guys are always going on exotic trips, land or sea. So I know if you will come back, I know I'm going to have you back. Because I'm going to see some pictures on Facebook, and I'm saying, hey, wait a minute, they're in such and such. I want to hear about that. Well, first of all, I want to know why they didn't tell me about it before it happened. But then I want to hear about it when they get back. So you will you have an open invitation to come back on the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Definitely.
All right. As they say, I will see you on the ocean.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Take care, y'all.
You take care too, Paul.
Right, bye-bye.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99 can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.